Welcome to the Lovestead.
Hello, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica, and today I'm sharing with you my January wrap-up. So I'm back in my office temporarily until I can get that fish tank air pump fixed downstairs by my bookshelf. Once I have that fixed, we will film in front of the bookshelf again. There's a little better lighting down there. It's bookish. So I'm looking forward to getting back down in my actual library for filming. Hopefully that improves sort of the ambiance and atmosphere of these videos here at the Lovestead. But for now, we will make do with videos in the office upstairs. So before I get into today's video, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying my content. It really does help the channel grow and help build our community. Make sure to like the video if you like it. All that fun YouTube-y stuff. Alright, let's get into what I read here in January. The first category is carryovers from December. I did have one carryover. I started this like New Year's Eve. So it's the lightest version of a carryover you can have, but it is technically a carryover, and it is Frostheart by Jamie Littler. This is a middle grade fantasy. The main character is Ash, and he lives in this polar dystopia. He goes on an adventure with his guardian, Tobu, who is this giant lovable yeti. They board a ship called the Frostheart, and the goal is that Ash is able to find a place where he fits in. He is what's called a song weaver. And song weavers are people who can communicate with these monsters called Leviathans. And people in Ash's village really are afraid of song weavers because if they're not careful, Leviathans can actually take control of a song weaver and make them do like whatever they want them to do. So they're afraid that Ash is going to bring all this trouble to their village, and they ban him from the village. So they board, Ash and his guardian Tobu board the Frostheart, and their goal is to try to find a place where Ash can fit in and live a happy life as a song weaver. And there's also a subplot in here because Ash's parents have gone missing. They went on a trip on a ship and never came back. So Ash is hoping that somewhere along the lines on this journey, he'll be able to actually find his parent. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. I enjoyed it. I thought the illustrations were darling. The characters were pretty lovable. I actually felt like the character development was probably the weakest link for me in this book. I wanted to know Ash and the other characters at a deeper level, but in terms of like plot and intrigue and pacing and atmosphere, that was all really wonderful. And I will definitely continue on with this series. The second book in the series is, I actually have it right here, Frostheart Escape to Aurora. So I will give this one a go and see what happens. The next category is book clubs. The first book club I'm in is the Killing Time with Cozy's Cozy Mystery Book Club. I read 2 books for book club this January. The first one was Mocha and Murder by Tanya Kappas, and this is a cozy mystery series set in a coffee shop in Kentucky. I absolutely love coffee and coffee shop themes. Stories centered around coffee shops and diners are one of my favorite tropes. This is book 2 in the Killer Coffee series. I read book 1 and thought it was okay. I liked it enough to read book 2. I actually DNF'd Mocha and Murder. So this story is about an animal shelter volunteer and a man who adopts a chicken, and they get in a big fight over this chicken's eggs. There's some inaccurate information about chickens in here, but I think I only picked that up because I have chickens and I'm obsessed with chickens. So I was willing to let that go. It bothered me a bit and it took me out of the story because the chickens are central to the mystery in this book. But what really killed it for me was this insta-love relationship. So in the first book, the main character moves back to this small town and connects with her like high school sweetheart. And they randomly decide, hey, let's just get married. So they're engaged. It's very insta-lovey in the first book. And then the second book, it just gets weird. So like she wants to date him. She wants to go on dates with him and get to know him and spend more time with him before they like set a date and move forward. And he gets offended by this. And that's so confusing because like you're marrying her. Like why do you not want to go on a date? Like it was so weird. And I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with that. It just didn't make any sense at all. And then she's all like, oh, I'm so sorry I hurt him. How am I going to make it up to him? Like, you don't have to be sorry for wanting to get to know the man you're going to marry. Like, make it make sense. So yeah, that was a pretty firm DNF for me. The other book that I read for a book club with Killing Time with Cozies was Wheeler Dealer by Rita Moreau. This centers a mature sleuth and she buys, what do you call it? She buys a camper van and she's going to go on this like journey with her other mature friends. And I also DNF'd this. It was not my month for cozy mysteries, y'all. This, I loved the premise. So the premise is that the camper van that she buys is haunted. And so there is this underlying, or there's a subplot where she's trying to figure out how to get this ghost to cross over. And I got like 150 pages into this book and there was still no murder. Like, I like a cozy mystery to have like the mystery or the murder to happen at least 50 to 75 pages in so that you spend the rest of the book sleuthing and trying to figure out who did it, solving the mystery, finding the clues, etc. But I was 150 pages into the book and there had been no murder and there was no sign that there was going to be one anytime soon. And I really don't like that. I didn't like that length of buildup in this book. There wasn't a whole lot happening. We were just getting to know the characters and traveling with them. And so that was the first thing that I was like, okay, I'm not loving this. The second thing was I didn't like the way that the author portrayed the mature sleuth. She really portrayed her as kind of a bigoted old lady. And like, I'm sorry, but your age does not excuse bigotry. And the book was really kind of trying to state that because she's older, we should just accept that she's got these views. And that doesn't jive with me either. Like, not at all. And I also feel like it's an unfair way to portray mature characters. Because I know plenty of older folks who are wonderful people who would never identify with that. So I just, bleh, yeah, yuck, DNF. The other book club that I'm in is Middle Grade Monthly. This is a middle grade book club. The book selection for the month of January was The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant. This is a middle grade fantasy about Cordelia, and she lives in London with her family. It's kind of a historical, kind of a historical fantasy, I guess I would say. It's like not Regency. It's during the age of the Enlightenment in London. And so the king commissions these magical families to make different articles of clothing for him that are magical. So like Cordelia is in the hat maker family and they make hats. And then there's like a glove maker family who makes gloves and a boot maker family who makes boots. And all of these families dislike each other. So there's a lot of discord among all the makers, all these magical families. And Cordelia's father goes missing. He's lost in a shipwreck. And then they're also on the brink of war with France. So they're trying to commission some clothing for the king and his daughter to wear to create a peaceful environment for negotiations with the King of France so that they don't go to war. So all of these makers are making different articles of clothing for that purpose. And then Cordelia is also trying to figure out how she can go searching for her father because she doesn't believe that he is actually dead. So that's the basic premise of this book. It's magical, it's whimsical, it's chaotic. It's got a lot of like chaotic, frenetic energy about it. It's silly. There are some really funny parts and I enjoyed it. What did I rate this book? Yeah, I gave it a 3-star out of 5. And I will continue with this series. The next book in the series is The Map Makers. I think it comes out in 2022. I could be wrong. But yeah, it was fun, chaotic, whimsical, magical energy. The characters were really adorable and entertaining. Just the level of silliness made it a lot of fun. The next category is Readathons, Readalongs, and Challenges. I did participate in one readathon in the month of January, in the month of January. It was hosted by my friend Lee at Dark Roots Creations, and it was the Mary Poppins readathon. So she had a bingo board that she used, and you had different prompts on the bingo board to create a bingo. So I did complete some of the prompts for that, and I completed the artistic character. For that, I read There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark, which I'll talk about in a second, and The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, which I'll talk about in a second. There's a bingo, there was a prompt for siblings. For that, I read The Promised Neverland, Volume 8 and 9. There was a prompt for life balance, which I counted Mocha and Murder for that because that character really struggles to find a balance between her personal life and her coffee shop. There was a prompt for magical elements, and so I counted Frostheart by Jamie Littler for that one. There was a prompt for women's rights, and I counted Dead Until Dark by Charlene Harris for that. And then we were supposed to read the book Mary Poppins, which I actually read. I think I read that in 2020, and I really enjoyed it, so I counted that on the bingo board. So those are the prompts that I fulfilled for that readathon. And then we'll talk about those specific books here as we go along. The other readathon or read-along that I participated in was the Out of the Coffin read-along, and this is hosted by Amy at BookTube with Amy and Ange's Book Chatter. Basically, they are hosting a read-along of the Sookie Stackhouse series through the year 2022. So in January, we did read Dead Until Dark, and this was the first book. This is the series that the TV show True Blood is based on. So it centers around Sookie, who is a waitress at a local bar, and all of the characters within that town. So there is the bar manager, Sam. He is a shapeshifter. She falls in love with a vampire named Bill, and Bill kind of introduces her to all of the vampire world, like the different groups of vampires and vampire behaviors, the life as a vampire, vampire blood, and what vampire blood can do. And this was a really interesting book because I think it does a nice job of portraying what would actually happen in America if vampires did exist. Like some of those social hierarchies and constructs, and some of the ways that there are different groups that discriminate against vampires, there are different groups that fetishize vampires. Felt like that was such a really good exploration of what that would actually happen or what would actually play out should vampires like come out of the coffin and be real. Sookie is an interesting character. She's like part conservative, highly feminine woman, part just like straight up bad you know, like she kicks butt in certain parts. She's very strong. She's very forthright. She has clear boundaries. She is also a mind reader, and she acts like, or doesn't she act like, she kind of treats her mind reading abilities as a disability, which is an interesting commentary on disability, especially intellectual disability. So a lot to think about in this book, a lot to kind of break apart. I don't think that I'm quite done yet piecing apart everything that I think about this book. They did host a live show discussing it. I will leave a link to that live show in the description box down below. We talked about a lot of these things in the live show. I am going to continue on with this series. We're going to read the second book in February. I gave this book 3 stars out of 5, and a 3 stars for me is pretty solid. It means I enjoy it. It didn't blow me away, but I enjoyed it and I don't regret reading it. So I'll continue with this series. I'm really curious to see how things develop and where things go. All right. So looping back to Lee's Readathon, I did read volume 8 and volume 9 of the Promised Neverland manga series by Posuka Demizu and Kairu Shirai. This is about a group of kids who live at this orphanage, and you start the series thinking that everything is like super peaceful and cozy and happy here, and then it turns out this place is not what it seems. The kids are in grave danger, and so they escape and just kind of make their way through a dystopia. And that's the most that I can really say about it without giving too much away. It is amazing. It is so good. That's all I can say. I feel like anything else I would say would be spoilers, but what Kairu Shirai does so well is character development and getting you to just really feel for the characters and what they're going through and what they're facing. And the twists, I mean, every ending of each volume makes my jaw drop. And genuinely shocks me. So it's so good. It's so good. I gave both of those volumes 4 stars out of 5. And that counts for the siblings prompt for the Mary Poppins Readathon. I read The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. This is a nonfiction memoir. Amanda Palmer is the lead singer of the Dresden Dolls. She's also a performance artist, and she is married to Neil Gaiman. So basically talks about her life as an artist, her relationship with Neil, her life as a musician, and one of the common threads throughout the whole thing is not being afraid to ask for help from others and learning how to live interdependently without shame. And I enjoyed it. It didn't blow me away. I'll probably never read it again. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. The other book that I read for the artistic character in the Mary Poppins prompt was There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark. This is book 2 in the Sinner's Duet. This is a very dark romance about serial killers who have their eye on the same woman. So in book 1, they have their eye on the same woman and she chooses her man. And then in book 2, her man and her are trying to kill the other serial killer. Very dark, very twisted, but so good. So good. I just loved seeing the character evolution, both between the hero and the heroine, and just those morally gray characters. I just love them so much. And I really like seeing 2 incredibly broken people find love. Like, there's something so satisfying about that. And I really loved this series. I gave There Is No Devil 4 stars out of 5. Check your trigger warnings. She's a dark one. The next category is buddy reads. I had 2 buddy reads in the month of January. The first one was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and I buddy read this with my friend Johara. I didn't finish it, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it in my February wrap-up when I actually finish it. But the second buddy read I had was Final Girls by Riley Sager, and I buddy read this with my friend Angel at Angel Reads. The protagonist in this book has survived a slasher, basically. Like, this guy comes in and mass murders all of her friends while they're out camping in this cabin, and she is the only one to survive. Thus, the Final Girls. And all the newspapers dub her the final girl, and then there's like 2 to 3 other women who also survive mass slaughters and get dubbed the final girls. And the women all connect, and they kind of all connect through this main woman named Lisa, who was the first final girl. And what happens in this book is Lisa is dead, and supposedly it's a suicide, but you know, the protagonist and her friend Sam have other feelings about it. They don't feel like she would have killed herself. They don't feel like it makes any sense at all. It's dark and twisted. It's another book with very broken characters. It's another book with self-destructive characters. I am a sucker for a self-destructive character. Give me a self-destructive character and I will gobble that gook up. Like, yeah, it's just my favorite thing. Yeah, this book was thrilling. It was fast-paced. It had twists and turns. I was so absorbed. I was so absorbed in this story, and I was so connected to these characters. And for me, one of the most important things with a thriller is that immersion. I have to be completely immersed in the story to feel like it's the thriller for me, and I was absolutely immersed in this story. And could it have been better? Sure. Could there have been better twists? Sure. Were some of the twists a little predictable? Yeah. But it didn't stop me from just loving the experience of reading the book. So I gave this book, what did I give it? Yeah, I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. The last category is just everything else. So anything else that I mood read or just randomly picked up. And I did read Luster by Raven Leilani. This is a contemporary literary fiction, and it is about a main character who is in... The main character in this story is in a polyamorous relationship with a married man. She works in publishing and loses her job, and she's just kind of self-destructing. There we go again with the self-destructive characters. But what I really liked about this book was the interplay and exploration of a polyamorous relationship, because she develops a friendship with this man's wife, and it's like a very powerful friendship, even though there's some dysfunction in there. And I also really like the exploration of using art as healing. Again, going back to that prompt in the Mary Poppins readathon about an artistic character. So she is an artist, and she's exploring healing through her art. She's exploring her identity as a Black woman, as a fat woman. There's a lot in this book, a lot of beautiful, luscious layers. And I loved it. I loved my experience of reading it. I loved all the questions that it asked about relationships, sexuality, identity, art, jobs, professionalism. And I do highly recommend this to anyone who likes literary fiction. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. So that covers the books that I read this month. I do want to just touch base now on how I'm doing with my goals for the year, having read everything in January. So for the goal of binge reading series, I did sort of binge read Promised Neverland Volume 8 and 9. Keep going with that series, keep it moving along. For my goal of the series about series, the series that I want to read this year, I read Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris because I do want to read the Sookie Stackhouse series as part of that read-along. For the goal of reading a book for my physical TBR every month, I did read Frostheart. This has been on my TBR for a while. And then my other goal is to read more on Kindle Unlimited. And for that, Mocha and Murder, Wheeler Dealer, and There Is No Devil were all on Kindle Unlimited. So that means I made progress on 4 of my goals in the month of January, and I feel pretty good about that. I've been using the Copile system to rate my books because I wanted a more objective way to determine what my best books of the year are. And based on the Copile system, my best book this month was Luster by Raven Leilani. That book got a 4-star, and in Compile it scored an 8.57, which was the highest score of any of the books that I read in January. All right, let me know down below if you have read any of these books, or if you're planning to read any of these books. What was your favorite book from the month of January? Again, make sure to give me a like and subscribe. If you just want to let me know that you're here, leave the snowman emoji. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Mwah.